The main character of GTA 3 is, what can be said, very mysterious. The story of Claude is still one big puzzle for the players to a large extent. Finding out some details about the life of this character, apart from the plot from GTA 3, is not too helpful by the fact that, as we perfectly remember, Claude cannot speak. What's more, even though we meet him in GTA San Andreas during the countryside episode of CJ, it does not give us much. Of course, apart from the fact that, from this stage in San Andreas, we can easily conclude that Claude likes cars, he likes racing, and that he generally spent some time in his life in this corner of the world. There would be a lot of question marks that would be hard to answer regarding the Claude story we got to know in GTA 3. On the other hand, one of the coolest questions that arise when talking about this character is the question related to the time that passed between 1992 and 2001. As we remember, Catalina got involved with Claude during the events of GTA San Andreas in 1992, and she'd spent quite a long time with him, frankly speaking. Even considering that the heist from the beginning of the game may have happened a few years before the events of GTA 3. But more on that later in the video. Anyway, we would like to talk to you today about the fate of Claude and Catalina after GTA San Andreas. This is an interesting topic because, apart from the obvious answer that may have already popped up in your head, that is, the couple went to Liberty City, we can also find quite a lot of clues, thanks to which you can deduce much more. Overall, the idea started a couple of days after we published our episode on bridges in the Grand Theft Auto series. A user named S.M.G mentioned that, in his opinion, we mistakenly consider Ghost Town part of present Liberty City, or simply part of Liberty State. We replied to this comment and were pleasantly surprised. We have received a lot of reasons that indicate that Ghost Town does not physically exist in Liberty City since 2001. Everything is coming nicely because, apart from the subject of Catalina and Claude, we will take a closer look at the mysterious Ghost Town. Meanwhile, welcome to the Gaming Investigators channel, and let's get with today's episode. So, in the beginning, we'll present you the clues and connections that indicate that Ghost Town was part of Liberty City, and during the events of the game on the map, we cannot find this place because the passing time has significantly changed the appearance of this location. Of course, it is a theory that takes into account the fact that the bank robbery we see in the intro of GTA 3 took place a few years before the storyline of GTA 3. We are strong supporters of this theory, and for some reason sure that the bank robbery took place in 1997, not in 2001 as many players believe. First, we are going to explain why Ghost Town has no right to exist in GTA 3 and why it looks unfinished. To understand this, we must delve into Rockstar's Your Questions Answered article published in 2011 to 2012. The developers answered a few questions from GTA 3 fans about Ghost Town in this article. The first and extremely important thing is the fact that Rockstar confirms that Ghost Town is to represent a fragment of Liberty City. In turn, the second response from the creators is more extensive. As we can read, the developers did not plan to have more than 3 islands in the game. This information is not entirely true, as we'll talk more about this thread later on. But what's the most important at the moment is that Ghost Town itself was not supposed to be located on some small island. Moving on, the developers confirmed that Ghost Town was created solely for the intro of the game. This gives us a clear answer to the question of why Ghost Town has been hidden from the eyes of the players. In addition, Ghost Town has also been hidden because it was created to introduce players to an event from the past. As players, we get to know this pivotal moment when Catalina becomes our enemy. The creators did not have to make a scrap of the size of another city, since this was not their intention. So, knowing that Ghost Town is supposed to reflect some part of the city, the question is, which one exactly? Unfortunately, it is impossible to clearly define whether it was a part of Portland, Staunton Island, or perhaps Shoreside Vale. We know absolutely nothing about what these islands could have looked like 4 years ago. In this case, only speculation remains. After comparing the road layout in Ghost Town with the roads in Liberty City in 2001, we found out that it is probably part of Staunton Island, but we cannot in any way take it as credible evidence. Another issue is the reasons why we can be sure that the heist in Ghost Town took place long before the action of GTA 3. S.M.G told us that many lawsuits in America have been going on and are going on for years. Let us quote his words here. Even clear-cut cases take a long time because there's so much work on the investigation side and the paperwork side. The police and prosecutors want as much evidence as possible to have the best chance of convicting someone. The intro newspaper article also said it was a unanimous verdict, which means it was a jury trial, which adds more time and complexity than a judge-only trial. And here it is worth paying attention to the fact mentioned by S.M.G. that the unanimous verdict is written in the headline of the newspaper about the bank robbery. This means it was a trial with a jury, which adds more time and complexity than a trial with a judge himself. Thus, the argument is perfectly right in this case. Besides, in the article, we can also find another very nice detail. Note that in the headline, Catalina's name is not mentioned as being one of the accused of the heist. This is for a simple reason. Well, the woman was not looking at the surveillance camera, which was smashed by Claude a moment later, but also S.M.G. pointed out that CCTV technology wasn't that good in 2001 and that an outdoor camera just wasn't able to capture Catalina's face sufficiently. The final point in this discussion is trying to determine when the heist in Ghost Town happened. It is very difficult because we have to take several things into account. First, Catalina and Claude leave San Andreas in 1992. We know from this information that the heist must have occurred between 1992 and 2001. Moving on, this ghost town cannot be found in any part of Liberty City during the events of GTA Liberty City Stories. Due to the fact that the action time of the game is May 1998, our scope of research is reduced to 1992 to 1998. Later years are excluded due to the length of court cases. On the other hand, taking into account the size of the ghost town area, it should also be borne in mind that the reconstruction of such a large area probably does not take 2 or 3 months. So there is a really small chance that a bank robbery happened in 1998. The icing on the cake in this case is an article by the Liberty Tree newspaper published in early February 2001. It is about the scandal of businessman Barry Harcross in 1997. As we can read, the FBI allegedly falsely accused Harcross of laundering money for gangsters in its construction company or of smuggling drugs out of Colombia. It is very easy to see here the links between the man and the Colombian cartel. The cartel is a Colombian-American business conglomerate specializing in large construction projects, such as the construction of a skyscraper in Fort Staunton during GTA 3. And of course, we've got drug smuggling from Colombia, probably spank drugs specifically, since Colombians were so eager to distribute it all over Liberty City. Considering the Barry Harcross scandal and the fact that a member of the Colombian cartel appeared during the robbery, it is easy to guess that the gang was already operating in Liberty City at that time. Finally, we would like to talk about what happened to Claude, Miguel, and Catalina after the bank robbery in Ghost Town. In Claude's case, the matter is quite simple. The man had been in custody in Staunton for years awaiting the trial, while Catalina left Liberty City, having ended her relationship with Miguel for some time. Meanwhile, Miguel remained in Liberty City as one of the Colombian cartel soldiers, as confirmed by the events of GTA Liberty City Stories. So, where could Catalina have gone? The answer lies once again in an article in the Liberty Tree newspaper, this time dated October 18, 2001. The newspaper says that the FBI has been chasing the woman for several years after a series of robberies in Texas and New Mexico, and now believes she may have moved to Liberty City, possibly with an accomplice. And what's really interesting, we would like to point out that this partner was not Claude at all. This could not be the case because the man had been in custody during this time. So we can guess that Catalina was raiding in Texas and New Mexico with a completely different person whose identity we do not know. Unfortunately, during her return to Liberty City, the woman probably did the same with her partner as she did with Claude years earlier, simply killing him. And since the woman knew Miguel, she eventually joined the Colombian cartel. As for Claude himself, he was transferred to the penitentiary, which, by the way, was not located in Liberty City at all. Thanks to the discoveries from the document that is the holy grail of GTA 3, we know that the developers planned to create a location called Prison Island. This was where this prison was to be located. To illustrate this better, we will now represent the LCPD's whole procedure. Claude was taken from the jail in Torrington, and then the escort was making its way to Portland via the Callahan Bridge. Probably the escort was supposed to stop temporarily at the Portland View police station, only to go to the marina shortly after, from which Claude and the rest of the prisoners would be taken by a police boat to Prison Island. Regarding the topic of today's episode, we encourage you to watch the episode about why Catalina betrayed Claude. If you have any interesting things to add to this topic, or you don't quite agree with our point of view, as always, we are waiting for your comments. Thanks for your presence, take care, and see you soon!